Hello, a mug and milker. Last Saturday, my grandmother turned 70. She baked her own cake, set the table for 10, lit every candle by herself, and then she waited. No one came. Not my mother, not my aunt. Not anyone from the family she spent her whole life loving. They weren't too busy. They weren't too far. They were on a luxury cruise. A cruise she paid for. She thought it was a gift to bring everyone together. Instead, they left her behind, calling it a blessing. I found out hours too late. I canceled my promotion dinner that night and drove straight to her house. But what I walked into wasn't just a forgotten birthday. It was a betrayal years in the making. Before we dive in, tell me, if your family left your grandmother like that, what would you have done? I was still at the office when Mom's message popped up. Plans changed. Don't bother coming. I read it twice, confused. Then a third time, slower. My hand hovered over the small wrap box on my desk. A bracelet I'd ordered off Etsy, personalized just for Grandma Avon. My chest tightened. No explanation, just those 4 words. I tried calling her, but no answer. Typical. She never liked confrontation. A sip of my now cold coffee did nothing to clear my head. I glanced at the clock. 5:30 p.m., Grandma's 70th birthday dinner was supposed to start at 6. Just 10 people. That's all she asked for. Nothing big. I texted her directly. I'll be there after work. She called me back. Don't bother, sweetheart. Her voice, quiet off. Grandma, what's going on? There was a pause. Long enough, I thought the line dropped. It's fine, Celine. I just got mixed up. They're not coming. I guess something came up. Her voice cracked on that last word. I froze. Who's not coming? She faked a small laugh, brittle like glass. All of them. I pushed back from my desk, standing without realizing it. But the party, it's okay. Really, it's just me here. Just a little cake. Avon, don't drive all the way here for nothing. I'm okay. I hung up without answering. My hands shook. This wasn't okay. Her house came back to me in flashes. The small table she always dressed up. The pink embroidered napkins that said family first. The old dining chairs, never enough for everyone, but she set them up every time. Probably right now, she was sitting in that silence, waiting. Then, the final blow landed. Out of habit, I opened Instagram. And there they were, a carousel of photos posted just an hour earlier. My mother, my brothers, their wives, my aunts. All dressed in white, smiling, holding champagne glasses against endless blue water. A Mediterranean cruise. Caption family time is precious. I dropped the phone. No, not this. They hadn't canceled. They'd lied. Grandma wasn't forgotten. She'd been abandoned. Something snapped inside me. I looked at my calendar. At my promotion dinner, scheduled for tonight, where my manager planned to announce my new role in front of half the team, I was supposed to be celebrating. I picked up the RSVP note and tore it in half. Then I grabbed my keys. I didn't text anyone, didn't explain, not to my boss, not to my friends waiting at the restaurant. I drove straight to Avon. The freeway blurred past. I remember gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles burned. My thoughts weren't clear, just noise. But one thing cut through. This wasn't about me anymore. She didn't deserve to sit there alone. I thought I was used to their games. I'd spent years pretending not to notice when I wasn't invited to family trips, or when my brothers got Mom's praise no matter what. But leaving Avon like that wasn't a game. That was cruelty. I pulled into her street just as twilight bled. Into night, porch lights flickered on up and down the block. But hers stayed dark. I parked, engines still running. For a second, I couldn't move. What if I come too late? Finally, I killed the ignition, forced my feet to move. My heels clicked too loud against the walkway. I hated the sound. It felt wrong. Then I saw it. Through her kitchen window, she sat. At the table, back straight, facing an empty room. The cake sat untouched. Candles still flickering, melting into waxy puddles. Plates lined up like they were expecting people. Pink napkins folded perfectly, but no one was coming. She didn't see me watching. I wiped my face, swallowed whatever cracked in my throat, and knocked softly before stepping in. "Morgan, I told you not to come," she whispered when she looked up. I forced my voice steady. Too late. I pulled out a chair and sat down like I belonged. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The smell of vanilla cake hung faintly in the air, clashing against the heavy silence between us. Avon's eyes flickered toward me but didn't hold. She looked smaller somehow. Not just older, smaller, like part of her had caved inward. I reached for the knife, cutting a slice of cake. My hands worked without asking permission from my brain. I placed the slice in front of her. "Happy birthday, Grandma." Her lips curved, barely. "You didn't have to come." I placed another slice onto my own plate. Too late for that. The tick of the wall clock filled the silence, punctuated by the faint scrape of my fork against porcelain as I forced myself to take a bite. Avon's hand trembled when she picked up her fork. I pretended not to see. We sat there, chewing cake neither of us wanted. Finally, I spoke quietly. "Where are they, Grandma?" She didn't answer. I pressed again, softer. "Where are they really?" Her fork clinked as she set it down. "Moji-een. Don't lie to me," she sighed. Her gaze drifted to the pink napkins, to the wilting flowers by the window. "I paid for it." I blinked. "Paid for what?" She wouldn't look at me. "The cruise." I froze. "I'm sorry." "What?" Avon rubbed her hands together slowly, as if washing something off her skin. Her voice was thinner now. "Your mother said it'd be a family healing trip, that they needed it. She said I wouldn't enjoy it. Too much walking. Too loud." My stomach turned cold. "You paid for their cruise?" Her nod was almost invisible. "I wanted them to be together, even if I couldn't be there." I couldn't find words. None that mattered. I thought maybe they'd remember me fondly. Maybe the grandkids would talk about me. Her voice cracked then. She stopped talking. Just sat there. I didn't move. Couldn't. She paid for it. My mind drifted unbidden to years ago. I was maybe 10. Maybe younger. I remembered standing in the corner at Thanksgiving, listening to Mom introduce me to a distant cousin as the extra one. Not even embarrassed. Just factual, like saying the sky was blue. I remembered how Avon had pulled me aside that night, slipped a bracelet into my hand. Handmade. Nothing fancy. Sometimes she whispered, "Being last means you're the surprise." I looked at her now, across the table, and I realized for the first time in years she was wearing that same bracelet. Frayed now. Loose, but still there. She'd never taken it off. I swallowed against the lump in my throat. "I canceled my promotion dinner tonight," I said suddenly. She looked up, confused. "I was supposed to celebrate with my team, but I canceled because I couldn't let you sit here alone." Avon's lips trembled. "I didn't want to ruin your night." "You?" "I didn't. I thought about my life then. Every step I'd taken, every extra hour at work, every effort to be noticed by a family who only saw me when they needed a favor. A check. A seat filled in a family photo. What was I still holding on to? I wasn't going to help anymore. Silence pressed between us again, but this time it wasn't suffocating. I was tired. My eyes wandered, landing on something tucked behind. The side table near the kitchen, a wooden box, small, locked, dusty. I frowned. "What's that?" Avon followed my gaze, and her expression changed. She shook her head gently. "Just old things. Nothing important." She changed the subject too quickly. I let it go. For now, I looked back at her bracelet instead. "It's still holding up," I said quietly, nodding at it. Her fingers brushed over it, soft as a memory. "I never took it off," she whispered. "Neither." I spoke after that. Eventually, I reached for my phone, needing something. Another notification lit the screen. Mom's latest post, another photo, another caption. "Living the legacy she left us." I stared. Left us. I looked at Avon, her face, her silence, her hands. "Grandma," I whispered, not breathing. "What did you leave them?" Avon said nothing, but her hands shook when she reached for her glass. I reached across the table, laying my palm lightly over her trembling fingers. She didn't pull away. The glass stayed there, caught between her grasp and her fear, as if she wasn't sure which deserved her strength. "What did you give them, Grandma?" My voice came out quieter than I expected. A pause then, with no emotion, just flat resignation. Everything. I felt the air shift in the room. Everything, I repeated, though I knew she meant it. Avon nodded faintly. The house, the rentals, the money your grandfather left. I thought I was signing tax papers. Her voice cracked like the words themselves hurt to say. I held her hand tighter. When, months ago, Vera said it was to help, said paperwork gets complicated. After 70, and you just signed, her chin lowered. I trusted them. There it was, simple, brutal. I should have read them. I didn't. My throat closed. She wasn't even crying, not properly, just sitting there, small and worn down, as if the betrayal hadn't just happened over months, but over decades, and she'd only just noticed. I didn't trust my voice. I sat back slowly, letting go of her hand, because I wasn't sure if I was comforting her or holding myself together. She thought they loved her. She thought paperwork didn't need questioning. And somewhere, deep inside me, something snapped. I stood up. Celine, I'm getting more tea, I lied. But I wasn't headed to the kitchen. I moved toward the side table instead, where that old wooden box rested in the shadows near the wall. I didn't know why. Something about that dusty lock had stayed in my mind since the moment I saw it. Something unfinished, something wrong. I knelt quietly, lifting the box. It wasn't heavy. Behind me, Avin's voice was small. What are you doing? I didn't answer. My fingers found the latch. It wasn't even locked, just stuck from disuse. A firm pull and the box creaked open, inside papers and one sealed envelope. I pulled it out carefully. The paper felt thicker than modern envelopes, older, yellowing at the edges. On the front, in my grandfather's precise handwriting, it read, Last Will and Testament. My stomach tightened. Grandma, I said, holding it up. What's this? Silence. I turned and saw her face pale. I forgot, she whispered. I stood slowly, envelope in hand. You forgot your husband's will? She shook her head helplessly. I hid it. My heart dropped. Why? She didn't answer. I slid my finger carefully along the envelope's edge, opening it. Avon didn't move. The first page was clear. My grandfather had left everything to Avon. The house, the savings, the rentals. But attached to the back, barely hanging on, was a handwritten codicil. I read it twice before believing it. If Avon were to pass, the secondary heir was me, not Vera. Not Bryn, me. Celine. Avon hadn't said a word. She just watched me read, her eyes glistening, her hands twisting together until her knuckles turned white. I looked up slowly. My voice, when it came, was hoarse. You hid this. You hid this from me. I thought it would cause trouble. Trouble? She wiped her face roughly. They said you didn't need the burden, that you had your own life. I felt my jaw clench. They didn't just steal from you. They stole from me too. She flinched. And you let them? Avon broke then. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking, not from age this time, but from something deeper. Guilt, maybe, or grief. I didn't want you to hate me. She whispered through her fingers. I stared at her. And for the first time that night, I wasn't sure who I hated more, my mother, or the woman across from me who just called herself my ally. I woke to silence. The old couch creaked as I shifted, the morning light cutting across the living room like dust-laden blades. For a second, I couldn't remember where I was. Then my eyes found the unopened birthday cards lined along the mantel. Different ears, different handwriting, all unopened. I sat up, knees stiff. The smell of cold cake lingered in the air like something sweet that had gone stale. I looked around Avin's house, noticing, really noticing for the first time, how little of her life filled the space. It was her house, but it wasn't her home. I kept waiting for it to feel familiar. It never had. I stood across the room and poured myself coffee that had long since gone bitter. My hands shook as I held the cup. I wasn't sure if it was exhaustion or fury. Before I could stop myself, I reached for my phone. Her name blinked on the screen. Vera, I tapped to call. It rang longer than it should have. Then her voice came, all syrup and sunshine, like she hadn't abandoned her own mother on her. Birthday. Well, look who's alive. I thought you'd be too busy celebrating that big promotion. I didn't answer. She laughed lightly. You saw the cruise pictures, huh? Gorgeous, right? First class all the way. I closed my eyes. Where's Grandma's house? Deed, Mom. Silence. Then Magen, what's going on? The deed, the rentals, the account transfers. What did you make her sign? Her tone changed. Colder now, but still careful. Honey, she's old. You know how confused she gets. I mean, you've seen her. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. She trusted you. I'm taking care of her. What do you think I'm doing this all for? You don't understand Celine. Managing property, taxes, it's complicated. She never wanted to sign anything. Her voice sharpened. Don't let her drag you down with her. The words hit harder than they should. I hung up. For a long time I just stood there, the phone heavy in my palm. My breathing was uneven. No tears, not yet. Just the kind of hollow, scraping feeling that leaves you too tired to cry. I knew then, she wasn't confused. She was strategic. Every gentle dismissal, every deflection, every lie wrapped in maternal concern. It wasn't sloppy. It was calculated. I set the phone down slowly. I had no idea what to do next. I wandered outside before I even realized where my feet were taking me. The neighborhood looked the same as it always did. Neat lawns, chipped fences, the occasional wind chime fluttering. Under the morning sun, I started knocking on doors. Mrs. Peterson, 2 houses down, opened first. Her eyes darted from my face to the street. I'm sorry about your grandmother, she said. You knew? My voice cracked. About what, dear? That she signed everything over. She hesitated. I thought, well, your mother said it was safer that way. I left without saying another word. At the next house and the next, it was the same story. We thought it was what she wanted. She said you lived out of state, said your grandma wasn't managing. Well, even strangers had been complicit in her erasure. By noon, I found myself sitting on Avon's porch steps, staring out at nothing. I could fly back to Chicago. I could leave all this behind, pretend it wasn't my problem. But whose problem? Was it then? Because Avon's wasn't confused and I wasn't absent. I was angry. I pulled out my phone again, not to call my mother this time. I dialed my office. When the line connected, I spoke with no hesitation. I canceled my promotion dinner that night permanently. Her voice wasn't sweet anymore. Celine, listen carefully. You've worked hard to build your life. Don't let old burdens drag you under. I stood motionless in Avon's hallway. Her framed wedding photo hanging crooked beside me. The smell of dust and cold air surrounding me like static. My mother's words weren't a suggestion. They were a warning. I know this feels dramatic right now, she continued, syrup turning to steel. But you don't need to get involved in family. Business, you don't understand. Let us handle it. Take care of yourself. I closed my eyes. My fingers tightened around the phone until it ached. You're abandoning her. A pause. She's tired, Magen. You will be too. Then the line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly. My whole body strangely still. There wasn't even anger yet. Just a weight in my chest, thick and suffocating. I wandered into the kitchen without thinking. The house was too quiet, except for the hum of the old refrigerator, and that's when I saw her. Avon, sitting on the front porch in her thin nightgown, slippers half on, her frail shoulders hunched, her skin pale against the gray morning. I didn't remember moving. I was just suddenly outside, kneeling in front of her. Grandma? Her eyes were glassy, unfocused, lips trembling. She looked past me. I thought you weren't coming. I swallowed the lump in my throat. My voice broke anyway. I'm here. I wrapped my arms around her thin body, lifting her gently, feeling how light she'd become. Carrying her inside, I laid her. On the old recliner, her breathing was shallow but steady. She'd been waiting for me, not just now, for years. After tucking a blanket around her, I searched for her medications, only to realize I didn't know where they were. Her cabinets were chaotic, pill bottles mixed with outdated vitamins, paperwork shoved between drawers. I found myself crawling under her bed, half frantic, That's where I saw it. A metal box, old, heavy, locked, but rusted. I dragged it out. The dust coated my hands as I fumbled at the latch. It gave way with a metallic snap. Inside documents, not in folders, not organized. Just piled. I reached for the first paper, my heart pounding for reasons I didn't understand. Deeds, the house, the rentals, her name, and mine. I froze. She co-signed the house to me. I flipped through the stack. Medical proxy forms, unsigned. She'd never given my mother legal control. She hadn't handed over her future, not officially. At the bottom of the box, a list, scrawled in her shaky handwriting. I read each line. Maganokka birthday miss. Christmas no call. Canceled dinner. Forgot bracelet. My throat tightened until I couldn't breathe. She'd been keeping track. Every disappointment. Every abandonment. I looked up to see her watching me. Eyes barely open. Tears catching in the creases of her cheeks. Your name. It was supposed to be yours. I sank onto the floor beside her. Papers scattered like confetti around me. The house was silent except for her labored breathing. I looked at the deeds. Again, she hadn't signed them for them. I sat there for a long time. Her hand cradled in mine, the morning light creeping slowly across the walls, as if even the sun wasn't in a hurry to reach this house. I didn't cry. Not yet. But something in me shifted. When dawn came, I stood and I packed the documents carefully into my bag. I stood in the bank's lobby that morning, holding the manila envelope like it weighed more than my own body. The air conditioning hummed above me, the scent of printer paper and stale coffee hanging in the air. And I remember thinking how surreal it felt. I wasn't here to open a savings account. I wasn't here to discuss interest rates. I was here to reclaim what had never been anyone else's to take. Next, please. I stepped forward without speaking. The teller was polite, middle-aged, someone's aunt maybe. I placed the documents down carefully, sliding them toward her without a word. Her fingers moved expertly as she sifted through the papers. The co-ownership deed, Avon's original documents, proof of identity. She glanced up once, met my eyes, then nodded softly. You're listed here as co-owner. Her voice wasn't surprised. Would you like to update the communication address? I nodded. My address. And account management permissions. Remove Vera Sheridan entirely. Another pause. A flicker of understanding crossed her face. Understood. She printed forms. I signed them without reading. Not because I trusted her. I didn't trust anyone anymore, but because the paperwork didn't matter now. My resolve did. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I signed. When it was done, she leaned back slightly. Good, she said quietly, sliding the folder toward herself. Someone's finally protecting her. I stepped back. My hands were steady now. I walked out into the Houston morning, without looking back. By the time I reached Avon Street, my phone buzzed. Once dot, but when I reached her porch, I checked out of habit. It wasn't a text from Vera. It was worse. She'd posted on Facebook. A daughter who never visits now thinks she knows best, it said. Funny how people show up when money's involved. Underneath, smiley face, I felt the blood drain from my face. The thread of comments was growing already. People I knew, church acquaintances, former neighbors. No, not Celine. She seemed so sweet. Maybe someone should check on Avon. Poor thing. Another message pinged in from a former colleague. Are you okay? People are talking. I sat down on Avon's steps, staring at the screen. I felt nothing, not embarrassment, not even fury. They believed her. People always did. I thought about responding, crafting some carefully worded post explaining everything. Then I closed the app. Not this time. I wasn't defending myself anymore. I was defending her. Inside the house, Avon stirred softly from her nap. I stood up. By late afternoon, I was sitting in a modest office that smelled faintly of lemon oil and worn leather chairs. The attorney across from me, recommended by the elderly neighbor next door, looked over the documents in silence for almost 10 minutes. Finally, he spoke. These are valid. She never signed the power of attorney forms, which means, legally, No one currently has guardianship or financial control. I nodded once. I want that to change. He adjusted his glasses. Are you prepared for the backlash? Yes. He hesitated, then pushed a set of forms toward me. Let's begin. I signed. I didn't tremble. I didn't second guess. By evening, I was back in Avon's house. She was sleeping peacefully in her recliner, the soft hiss of the oxygen machine, the only sound in the room. I sat beside her, the papers in my lap, and watched her breathe. Then my phone vibrated. Voicemail. I hit play without thinking. Vera's voice filled the room. Calm, too calm. You'll regret this, Morgan. A pause. I promise you, you'll regret it. The message ended. I stared at the phone in my hand for a long time. I did regret it, but not for the reason she thought. I didn't regret protecting Avon, but I did regret thinking it would be that simple. The letter came the next morning. A formal summons. Vera was contesting the emergency guardianship order. She wanted it overturned. My first reaction wasn't anger. It was something heavier, something colder. I sat there in silence, the paper in my lap, rereading the words like they'd change between blinks. Petitioner, Vera Sheridan. Even after everything, my mother wanted a courtroom fight. And worse, a part of me doubted myself. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd overstepped. I wasn't a lawyer. I wasn't family court material. I was just the daughter who never called enough, as Vera loved to remind people. What if the court saw me that way too? I needed clarity. I drove to Avon's house without thinking. Just drove. I don't remember the turns or the traffic. Only pulling up outside and seeing her sitting by the front window, staring out at nothing. I found her in her recliner, half asleep, her cardigan buttoned wrong, her slippers mismatched. Grandma? Her eyes fluttered open. My little girl. She said it so softly, I almost missed it. Then she squeezed my hand. Right then, everything shifted. Inside me, that single touch was heavier than the letter in my bag. This was who I was fighting for. I stayed with her that morning, helping her sip tea, brushing her hair as she dozed again. But when my phone buzzed, I saw it. Another online post from Vera. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Instead, I stepped outside, letting the screen door click shut behind me, and just stood there on the porch. I wasn't alone for long. Mrs. Levin from next door came over. Then Mr. Haskins from 2 doors down. They didn't say much at first, just stood there awkwardly, eyes flicking between me and the house. Finally, Mrs. Levin spoke. I saw the pictures, she said quietly, of her. I nodded. I didn't know it was that bad. She hesitated. None of us did. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't have the energy to explain. They knew. That was enough. In the days that followed, the shift grew clearer. Neighbors began dropping by, not in pity, but in quiet apology. They brought casseroles, mail they'd held for Avon when she forgot to check her box, even photo albums they'd kept from church picnics with pictures of her smiling, years before. Mercy, the narrative was cracking. But it wasn't just the neighbors. A message popped up on my phone late one night. It was from Melissa, my cousin from Oregon, someone I hadn't spoken to in almost a decade. What your mom did, none of us knew. We're behind you. I sat there in bed, staring at that message, tears stinging my eyes. I wasn't as alone as I thought. By the time I met with the attorney again, my mind was clearer. He went over the court summons with me, careful but honest. She's trying to argue you forced control, he said, that Avon was coerced. I swallowed hard. Is there a chance I lose? There's always a chance, he said, but truth matters. Focus on that. He laid out the strategy plainly. We don't attack her character. That plays into her narrative. Then what do? We present Avon's reality, I nodded slowly. I'm done begging them to love me right, I said. I'm just going to protect her. He looked at me, then finally smiled. That's exactly what we'll do. The day before the hearing, the phone rang. I expected another lawyer, maybe a last-minute settlement offer. It wasn't. It was Vera. Her voice was cool, casual. Bring her to court, Celine. I gripped the phone tighter. No, she needs to testify. She's sick. She's lucid enough to say who she trusts. No, but Vera's voice stayed calm. I'll make sure the court hears from her. I hung up, but deep down I knew it wasn't up to me anymore. The court didn't care. When the official order arrived, I sat alone on Avon's porch for what felt like hours. The ink on that paper weighed more than I could explain. Avon was to appear in court, no exceptions. I broke that night, quietly in the bathroom where Avon wouldn't hear. I let the tears fall until my throat hurt from holding back every sound. My grandmother was frail, confused most days. And now I had to dress her up, parade her like evidence. This isn't justice. But no one cared what I thought, not in that moment. The morning of the hearing, I helped Avon into one of her old cardigans. The soft blue one. She smiled faintly, not understanding why I was dressing her so carefully. When I slid her slippers on, she patted my shoulder like a child comforting a parent. Where are we going? She whispered. I couldn't answer. The drive to the courthouse was silent. I glanced at her in the rear-view mirror, head leaning against the window, her breath fogging the glass. Inside the courtroom, Vera was already seated. She looked immaculate. Her makeup was perfect. Her suit looked expensive. And her smirk, that was flawless. She didn't even glance at Avon as we passed. I sat Avon down beside me in the courtroom, her hands resting on her lap. She looked lost. And for a moment, I hated every person in that room. Vera took the stand first. She told the judge about Avon's decline, about her concern for Avon's well-being. She painted herself as the dutiful daughter, the selfless caretaker who had tried her best until certain outside influences, her words, not mine, had confused things. She's fragile, Vera said sweetly, locking eyes with the judge. But she always trusted me. My stomach twisted. Then the judge asked for Avon to approach. I stood. I helped her up. She stumbled once. I caught her. All I wanted to do was say no. But the bailiff waited. When Avon reached the front, she stared at the floor, then glanced around, bewildered. The judge leaned forward. Do you know where you are today, Mrs. Sheridan? Avon opened her mouth. Nothing came. Vera's smirk deepened. Then Avon turned. She saw me, and in that instant, just for that instant, her gaze cleared. She's the only one who came. The room went still, not silent. Still like the moment after a dropped glass before it hits the ground. Vera's face shifted just slightly. No one moved. No one spoke. I didn't need to explain anything. Not anymore. The judge sat back slowly. His expression changed, tightened. Avon kept her gaze on me, her frail frame swaying slightly until the bailiff caught her arm and guided her back to our table. The silence said more than Vera's entire speech. When the verdict came, it wasn't dramatic. There was no gavel slam. Guardianship remains with Celine Sheridan, the judge said simply. Then he turned toward Vera. And what you did, he said coldly, borders on exploitation. Vera stood abruptly, fury bleeding into every inch of her posture. She didn't speak. She just walked out, heels striking the floor like gunshots. I didn't follow her. I stayed where I was, holding Avon's trembling hand. When we left the courthouse, I found them waiting. Cousins, neighbors, people I hadn't seen in years. Melissa stepped forward first. You did what none of us had the courage to. I said nothing. I couldn't. My throat felt too raw. We drove home in silence. That night, as I settled Avon back into her recliner, tucking the blanket around her knees, I heard something slip through the front door. A letter, no name on the envelope, but I knew the handwriting. Vera. I picked it up, whatever I expected. It wasn't what was inside. The letter wasn't what I expected. I read it standing in the kitchen, the envelope trembling slightly in my fingers as I unfolded the paper. There was no apology, just words scribbled sharp and fast, like she'd written them without stopping for breath. You were always Grandma's favorite. That was how she opened. No dermagen, no explanation. She wrote about envy like it was a simple fact. How, growing up, she always felt like Avon saw something in me that she never gave Vera. How she thought if she could take everything connected to Avon, the house, the money, the family photos, even the family stories, maybe that feeling of being unwanted would finally fade. But it never did. She didn't say sorry, not once. And by the end of it, all I felt was sad. I folded the letter quietly, slipping it into the back of the drawer by the sink, next to the old box of matches Avon always used. The next morning, Avon didn't remember the courthouse. When I helped her sit up, her eyes fluttered toward me. "Mom," she whispered. I didn't correct her. I just sat on the edge of the bed, holding her hand in both of mine. It didn't matter what she called me. In her world, I was whoever she trusted most. That afternoon, I started taking down Vera's decorations. The heavy framed photos she'd filled the house with. Pictures of herself, of staged family gatherings I hadn't been invited to. One by one, they came off the walls. In their place, I put back the real ones. Photos of Grandpa, of Avon when she was young and radiant. And in the corner of one old frame, a picture I'd never seen before. A photo of me as a child, missing my front teeth, standing awkwardly beside Avon. She was smiling, I wasn't. I hung that photo above the fireplace. Later that week, the phone calls began. Cousins, people who'd never taken sides before, suddenly reaching out, checking in. Quiet conversations that didn't mention Vera, but that somehow said everything. I didn't trust it, not fully, but I answered. The months that followed weren't dramatic, no courtroom battles, no angry voicemails. Vera disappeared from view. Whether she was ashamed or simply tired of losing, I didn't know. But the silence felt heavier than her words ever had. And then, almost without realizing it, I found myself planning a dinner. Not the one I'd canceled all those months ago. Something quieter, a small table at a local restaurant, a few colleagues, 2 cousins who kept their promises and showed up. No speeches, no grand toasts, but Avon was there. She sat beside me, spooning small bites of chocolate cake, her eyes bright for once. She didn't know why we were celebrating, but she laughed when the server lit a candle, thinking it was for her. I let her believe it. When we got home that night, after tucking Avon into bed, I stood alone in the kitchen. The house was quiet. I lit a small birthday candle, not for me, not even for that dinner, for her. "Happy birthday, Grandma," I whispered. And in that silence, I finally understood. I didn't win. I didn't need to. There was nothing left to prove. Peace wasn't something I'd earned in court. It was choosing to stop chasing love from people who'd never known how to give it. I looked at Avon's sleeping form, her breathing soft and steady, and realized sometimes family is the one person who never stops waiting for you. What would you have done if your own family chose a cruise over showing up for you?